This is the story of how the United States launched a military campaign against Venezuela, captured its president, and changed the reason why at least 4 different times. In just 5 months, the Trump administration went from saying this was about stopping drugs to demanding the return of oil that was nationalized almost 50 years ago. On January 3, 2026, U.S. forces launched strikes on Venezuela and captured President Nicolás Maduro. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to August 2025. The beginning. On August 20, 2025, President Trump ordered 3 Navy warships to the coast of South America. Within 9 days, that number grew to 7 warships and 1 nuclear-powered submarine, carrying over 4,500 sailors and marines. Venezuela responded by deploying over 4 million soldiers in its militia. This became the largest U.S. military buildup in the region since the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. The initial reason was straightforward: stopping drugs from entering the United States. On September 2, the first boat strike killed 11 people. The administration said they were gang members. But then a follow-up strike killed 2 survivors clinging to the wreckage, sparking allegations of war crimes. Trump was clear. In early October, he said every one of those boats is responsible for the death of 25,000 American people. Later he said, quote, "We are going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country." By October 1, Trump told Congress the U.S. was in a non-international armed conflict with drug cartels. The CIA joined the campaign. On October 15, Trump authorized the CIA to conduct lethal ground operations inside Venezuela. The strikes continued. By January 3, 35 boat strikes had killed at least 115 people according to the administration's own numbers. But there was a problem. Venezuela actually plays a minor role in drug trafficking to the United States. Most cocaine passes through but doesn't come from there. Most fentanyl enters the U.S. over land through Mexico, not by sea from Venezuela. The DEA's own data shows Venezuela isn't a major drug source. And the administration never showed evidence about what drugs were on these boats. In November, the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group arrived. Over 15,000 military personnel were now in the region. The operation got a name, Operation Southern Spear. Eric Farnsworth from the Center for Strategic and International Studies called it the most significant buildup this century. You'd have to go back to Panama in 1989 to find anything similar. But cracks appeared. On November 11, the United Kingdom stopped sharing intelligence over concerns about legality. Southcom's own military lawyer raised concerns too. White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles told Vanity Fair what the real goal was. Quote, "He wants to keep on blowing boats up until Maduro cries uncle." That sounded like regime change, not drug interdiction. In mid-December, Trump's explanation suddenly shifted. It was about oil. On December 17, Trump said military pressure would continue, quote, "until such time as they return to the United States of America all of the oil, land, and other assets that they previously stole from us." The next day he said, quote, "They took all of our oil not that long ago. And we want it back." Stephen Miller called the Venezuelan nationalization, quote, "the largest recorded theft of American wealth and property." There's just one problem. Venezuela didn't steal anything. They nationalized their own resources, which is their legal right under international law. Venezuela officially nationalized its oil in 1976 under President Carlos Andrés Pérez. That was 49 years ago. Not that long ago. The process expanded under Hugo Chavez in 2007, forcing out ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips. Under international law, countries have the right to control their own natural resources. This principle was established by the UN in 1962, but Venezuela did break investment agreements. International courts awarded ExxonMobil $1.6 billion in 2014 and ConocoPhillips $8.7 billion in 2019. Chevron got a settlement for $2 billion in 2018. Venezuela hasn't paid these awards. That's a legitimate issue. But it's a civil dispute between companies and a government, not proof that Venezuela stole oil belonging to the U.S. government. Here's the crucial detail. Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves in the world. 303 billion barrels. That's more than Saudi Arabia's 267 billion, 5 times more than America's 55 billion. Most are extra heavy crude that's expensive to extract. Venezuela's production collapsed due to underinvestment and sanctions. But it's still a massive amount of oil. When Trump talks about taking it back, people hear something very different from collecting court awards. On December 10, the U.S. seized an oil tanker called the Skipper. On December 17, Trump announced a total and complete blockade of sanctioned oil tankers. By December 22, Trump said Venezuela was completely surrounded by the largest armada ever assembled in South American history. That same day, he said it would be smart for Maduro to leave power. Then he added, quote, "If he plays tough, it'll be the last time he'll ever be able to play tough." By November and December, regime change was stated more openly. On December 19, Secretary of State Marco Rubio called Maduro's presidency intolerable because it cooperates with terrorist and criminal elements. The Trump administration backed Venezuela's opposition, especially María Corina Machado. On July 28, 2024, Venezuela held an election. Maduro was declared winner with 51%. But the opposition said their candidate won by more than 2-1. The U.S. doesn't recognize Maduro as legitimate. On October 10, 2025, Machado was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for promoting democratic rights. She endorsed Trump, called him a visionary, and dedicated her prize to him. She'd been living in hiding but escaped to Norway for the ceremony in December. She's controversial. She supported the 2002 coup against Chavez. She wants to privatize the oil company. But she represents the democratic opposition the U.S. recognizes. So was this about regime change? That fit the facts better than drugs or stolen oil. Then came another shift. In December 2025, the administration designated Cartel de los Soles, linked to Maduro's government, as a foreign terrorist organization. Trump's Justice Department had indicted Maduro on narcoterrorism charges in 2020. This gave another legal framework for military action. The problem is all four explanations can't be the main reason simultaneously. They contradict each other. If it's about drugs, why focus on 1976 oil nationalizations? If it's about stolen assets, why not use international courts that already ruled for U.S. companies? If it's about democracy, why frame it as asset recovery? And if it's terrorism, why did that label only appear in December? On January 3, 2026, U.S. forces launched strikes on Venezuelan military facilities. They captured Maduro and his wife and flew them out. Trump approved it before Christmas. He watched in real time and said, quote, "It was amazing to see the professionalism, the quality of leadership, the level of equipment." He added, quote, "To have a few injuries, but no death on our side, is really amazing. We're not a laughingstock anymore." When asked what happens next, Trump said, "We're going to have to look at it right now." So what's this really about? Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves. U.S. companies are owed almost $10 billion in unpaid court awards. Venezuela's oil exports to the U.S. dropped to almost nothing after sanctions. After Trump ended Chevron's license in May 2025, Venezuela exported 90% of its oil to China. In March 2025, Trump put a 25% tariff on countries buying Venezuelan oil. China was making moves throughout South America. There's Cuba. Marco Rubio's been against the communist Cuban government his whole career. Cuba depends on Venezuela's cheap oil. If Venezuela changes leadership, Cuba's oil gets cut off. There's Guyana. Venezuela has a border dispute with Guyana over an oil-rich region. Guyana has a deal with ExxonMobil and Chevron. The U.S. has increased military operations with Guyana. Some think the US is protecting those oil fields. Almost 8 million Venezuelans have left the country. Trump's made immigration central to his presidency. As he said, they emptied their prisons into the United States, and the other thing is drugs. The real answer might be all of the above. Drugs, oil, regime change, terrorism, immigration, competing with China, protecting Guyana's oil, and weakening Cuba. But when a government cycles through 4 different main reasons in 5 months, it raises questions. Did the decision to act come first and the reasons followed? There's been no congressional declaration of war. No authorization for use of military force. A classified Justice Department memo supposedly provides justification, but the public hasn't seen it. Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego called it the second unjustified war in my lifetime. Republican Senator Mike Lee questioned the constitutional basis. Russia called the strikes armed aggression. The UN Secretary-General called for restraint. The UK stopped sharing intelligence over legality concerns. Legal experts said some boat strikes might be extrajudicial killings, especially that September strike that killed survivors clinging to wreckage. Under international law, Venezuela has the right to its resources. Court said expropriations broke investment agreements and awarded compensation. That's not the same as theft from the US government. This is how the United States went from 3 warships in August to capturing a foreign president in January, with the explanation changing at least 4 times. From drug interdiction to stolen oil to regime change to terrorism. Each presented as the main reason. Each with serious problems. The strikes killed at least 115 people. Maduro's captured. Venezuela's future is uncertain. What's clear, Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves. U.S. companies are owed billions. The Democratic opposition has U.S. backing. Drug trafficking is a concern. Competition with China and considerations about Cuba and Guyana all factor in. What's less clear, which was the actual reason for the biggest U.S. military operation in South America in over 30 years. Or whether the real reason is that when you have the world's most powerful military and your neighbor has the world's largest oil reserves, the justification becomes whatever's most convenient at any moment. The Trump administration toppled a government it considered illegitimate. Whether history remembers this as liberation or invasion might depend on what happens next and whether Venezuelans get to decide their future. But one thing is certain. When a government can't keep its story straight about why it went to war, that's a problem no matter what you think about the war itself.